Okie dokie. I believe this is the last of our Legendary Lords ranked by lore power video. Maybe it doesn't release last, but this is the last one before the Grand Championships. So let's get on with it. We have lumped Grand Cathay and the Lizardmen together. Partially because Grand Cathay only has 3 lords, and also partially because they turn into giant flying lizards, so this seemed appropriate to lump them together just to get the list out. So let's get started. We have 10 legendary lords to work through. Let's go by their lore power rank. And in last place, 10th place, is Tehenowin, the prophet of Sotek, wielding his plaque and 1 sacrificial dagger. He is lightly armored. He has no mounts that are lore accurate. Like, he doesn't have a named mount or anything, so that doesn't count in his favor for power. While he is a larger than average skink and a better fighter than a regular skink, he is no match for any of the other Lizardmen or Grand Cathay heroes by a long shot. Tehenowin, you are neat, but you are dead last in combat effectiveness. Similarly, we have Tic-Tac-Toe in number 9, another pretty easy decision, definitely better than Tehenowin in melee combat, but his more hit-and-run style and master of the skies with his Pterodon would not compare at all to anyone else on this list. He is also definitive 9th, similar to how Tehenowin was a definitive 10th. Tic-Tac-Toe, you're very cool, but you are a light infantry skirmisher in a giant frickin' dinosaur and dragons game. In the number 8 spot, we have the first of our actually fearsome combatants, but we have Yuan Bo, who is at this spot with an asterisk. He is heavily crippled by a story about him, but we'll get to that at the end. Yuan Bo can turn into a giant dragon. He is one of the dragon siblings, so turning into a giant dragon obviously makes you a scary melee combatant. He is also a caster, and he is the Emperor's Executioner's sword. And while the sword itself isn't crazy magically powerful, it's more symbolic than anything, it's still got a bit of magic to it. It can cut through any, items or amulets you have that might try and keep you safe. Now, Yuan Bo is at number 8 on this list because in his backstory, he is more of a spy master and an agent. And as an executioner, you usually aren't fighting people that are at their full strength. You're usually fighting people that are already restrained in some form. So he does not stand up to the other Lizardmen and Grand Cathay legendary lords. Now, this isn't to shit talk Yuan Bo and say he's terrible, just comparing him to other great, amazing, powerful lords. He isn't fully up there with the other Grand Cathay and Lizardmen. And unfortunately, he has done a lot of damage by a story where he is mentioned anecdotally. But at the end of a story about a Grail Knight, there's this knight that goes into the woods to look for his wife, and the wood elves capture him, but instead of executing him, like, one of the seers of the wood elves says he's important, so he fights alongside them, becomes a Grail Knight eventually, and in his adventures he apparently time travels. I know, just bear with me. He time travels, and one of the places he teleports and time travels to is to distant Cathay, where he slays the Jade Dragon Executioner, and that is largely believed to be Yuan Bo. So Yuan Bo got killed by a random Grail Knight, not even an important one. Now, is that story canon? It's kind of shaky if it is or isn't, but that does do some damage to him, and puts me at number 8, still above Tic-Tac-Toe, still above Tehenowin, but with the rumor that he got killed by a basic Grail Knight, I think that does put number 7 just above him, but I could see arguments for him beating number 6 or 7. 6, 7, and 8 are all very close, and we'll see who they are. Number 7 barely beating out Yuan Bo, but it is in my, argument, I would say Nakai is number 7 above Yuan Bo. I could see Yuan Bo beating him in some people's arguments, but Nakai is kind of the Grombrindle or the Green Knight of the Lizardmen. He shows up wherever in the jungles of Lustria he is needed. Wherever the Lizardmen are in trouble, Nakai will appear and all of a sudden lend aid. He is a magical, sacred Kroq-Gar, one of the ancients, one of the first spawning, so he's one of the oldest Kroq-Gars still alive. He has the Amulet of Itzel, which gives him some damage resistance. And, his little Star Mace thing is also slightly magical, but he mostly relies on just being a Kroq-Gar, being very powerful and ancient. I think he could beat Yuan Bo. When Yuan Bo turns into his dragon form, it would be a little difficult, but Nakai could probably take him through raw strength and fighting prowess versus someone who's more of an agent and a spy master, not as great at melee combat. But if you told me a giant dragon could beat Nakai, I wouldn't be floored. But he is very scary. He's a very strong teleporting lizard man, so I'll give him the benefit of a doubt. Number 6 is the saddest story in all of Total War Warhammer 2 and 3. Now, story, I don't mean lore, I mean how Gor-Rok is implemented into this game. Gor-Rok is terrible. He's objectively terrible, just useless in any multiplayer capacity, and his campaign is heavily carried by Lord Kroq. Gor-Rok does not deserve this fate, because in the lore, Gor-Rok is actually the best Saurus fighter that has ever existed. When he was spawned and he was an albino, the Slans like shit their pants for how cool he was gonna be. He's beaten Ogre Lords, he's beaten Savage Orc Lords riding Wyverns, he's beaten Chaos Lords. Anybody that comes to attack his city, the city of Itza, he turns them into a pizza. Haha! He did the Itza pizza thing. I'm the first person ever to do that joke. But no, more seriously, Gor-Rok is an amazing martial fighter. He just is held back a bit by his size and by the lack of magic. I do think that his weapon being a mace holds him at number 6 for me pretty solidly. I think 5 through 1 are all well above him because he lacks the capacity to kill big things, and a lot of the lizard men in Grand Cathay are big things. As we said before, if you told me Nakai beats Gor-Rok or Yuan Bo beats Gor-Rok and you come with a decent argument, I could believe you for sure. They are all pretty close, but Gor-Rok is by far the best fighter of them, and he's just very tenacious, very fast and fleety, so I doubt he would sit there and just be chomped on by a Celestial Dragon. Now we're getting into our very good combatants. Zhao Ming is going to come in at number 5 for Grand Cathay. The Iron Dragon, of course, can turn into a giant dragon, and he is very scary. Stop floating. Get back into frame. Thank you. He is a good spellcaster, a very arrogant fighter, and can get himself into trouble with overconfidence, but he can turn into a giant dragon. He is very good at martial arts, even in his human form, and like I said, he does have spells to back him up, so Zhao Ming is no fool, no coward, and can hold up a lot. But this is more, I'm less down on Zhao Ming than I am really high on everybody above him. So he does end up in 5th place, but it's not that I have a lot negative to say about him. Number 4 is just a bit more potent. For number 4, we go to Kroq-Gar, leader of the Last Defenders, with his Carnosaur mount Grimlock. I really think to talk about how Zhao Ming is number 5 is easier when you look at number 4. Zhao Ming would not stand a chance against Kroq-Gar. With his magical hand of the gods, blessed to him by the old ones on their way out, he has a laser power fist that Thanos would be a little jealous of. He also has a spear, good anti-large duelist, and on Grimlock, who is already an excellent hunter and anti-large duelist in his own right. These two have worked together, and he is one of the Saurus Old Bloods. He's one of the oldest Saurus to be alive, and they've been fighting side by side for this long against any threat to Lustria, wherever it may rise, and they have always come out victorious. I think if Zhao Ming turned into his dragon form, Grimlock and Kroq-Gar would make quick work of him. Even with his spell support, they are just that powerful. And of course, he has many enchantments from the old ones that would shield him from a lot of spells that Zhao Ming could throw his way. Kroq-Gar is a devastating duelist, but only comes to number 4 on this list because everybody above him is that crazy powerful. But Kroq-Gar could easily handle anyone below him. Quite a big gap there. I don't want to tip my hand too much on any of the other lists because we do have the top of all factions coming in, but the fact that Oxyotl is only 3 on this list is criminal. Unfortunately, he can't compare to number 1 and 2, and now if you've been paying attention, you'll know who number 1 and 2 are, you just don't know their order. But Oxyotl deserves a lot of credit. The fight between him and Kroq-Gar would not even be close. Oxyotl spends his time hunting greater demons. He wanders the Chaos Wastes for the most part and kills demons, comes back to the mortal world whenever he has to kill something else, just gets his orders beamed to him from various slans. Oxyotl is the best hunter that there ever was. His poisons are nigh on god-killing with how potent they are. He just has these amazing concoctions that he's gotten from all across the world to kill anything and anything. The only way Oxyotl loses a fight against anyone below him on this list is if he is forced to fight them without preparation. If he knows the fight is coming, they'll never know the fight is coming. If you think about it, that sentence made sense. But like, if he knew he had to kill Kroq-Gar and Kroq-Gar knew he had to kill him, Kroq-Gar would not find Oxyotl until a dart with the specific poison to kill Kroq-Gar was already in Kroq-Gar's neck, and then he might see Oxyotl fading away as Kroq-Gar bleeds out. Like, it wouldn't even be close. Number 1 and 2 on this list are just much more powerful than Oxyotl could hope to keep up with. Number 2 on this list and the most powerful Grand Cathay Lord is going to be Miao Ying, the Storm Dragon. Once again, a spellcaster that can command lightning at will makes her very dangerous as a combatant, especially when she's in her dragon form. Most of the fighting will be in the skies, where lightning is even more potent. Miao Ying is an incredible spellcaster, a determined and fierce general, and not an easy melee combatant to deal with either. She is the whole package. She's everything Zhao Ming is not, because she is a little more reserved and less prone to brash action from what I read about her. So Miao Ying is going to take the number 2 slot on this, the most powerful of the Celestial Dragon siblings, and the defender of the North Wall. And there's a reason Chaos hasn't gotten through that wall in a long time, and it's mostly due to her. I think if Oxyotl got in a fight with her, her magic, and especially her semi-healing magic, would get her through a lot of the poisons he throws at her, and her dragon form would be able to run him down fast enough. Like Zhao Ming, I don't know, he's just not as crafty. He would be more susceptible to Oxyotl's traps and poisons, but Miao Ying is much more on the level of god tier, and I think she'd be able to run Oxyotl down, or at least heal through his poisons, then find him and kill him. Because I mean, Oxyotl, the biggest caveat is if anyone gets into melee with him, he is going to lose, but he's at number 3 because if he hits you even once, you usually die. I just think Miao Ying could survive that hit. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you disagree. That's fine. Number 1 and 1.5 slots will go to Lord Kroq and Mazdamundi. Lord Kroq is the undead Slan guy that when he was alive was more powerful than Mazdamundi, but now that he's dead, he's not quite as powerful, and it doesn't really matter. But he's a legendary hero, and people would have wanted me to mention him. But Mazdamundi is the number 1 either way. With his Stegodon Zlok mount, Zlok is also a fearsome combatant. Maybe not the most fearsome in the Warhammer world, but he is fearsome, and that only helps. He also gets Mazdamundi off the ground. One of the only weaknesses of the Slans is if you get into physical contact with them, they're pretty pathetic, and being on top of Zlok with these little skinks to protect him, Mazdamundi is nearly invulnerable. And then you have the god tier earth-shattering power of being a Slan at all, and then being the most powerful Slan. Any Slan is more powerful than Miao Ying. Let that sink in. Any Slan is more powerful than Miao Ying as far as magic casting and otherworldly powers go. And Mazdamundi is by far the strongest of the living Slan now that Lord Kroq is dead. Mazdamundi is one of the Slans that caused the Dwarven Realm to fall because he grabbed the tectonic plates and moved them because he thought it was part of the Old One's plan. He levels entire cities that are not supposed to be there with his spell, Ruination of Cities. He ruins entire cities with a single spell. Anybody in melee combat with Mazdamundi would die a very painful, soul-crushing death. He could levitate you and just close his fist while you're levitating, and all your bones would convulse into dust. You would have nothing left. You would become a pulp, just atomized where you stood. The only shot of killing Mazdamundi is while he is sleeping, and even then that's difficult because Slans have a nasty ability to usually tell the future or read the signs in the Great Plan, and he is one of the people that gives Oxyotl his orders, so I extremely doubt Oxyotl would be getting the drop on this Slan or any Slan, but particularly Mazdamundi would be very good at killing Oxyotl. Whatever tree he is hiding in, whatever brush he is hiding in to get that shot would instantly flatten itself, leaving Oxyotl out in the open as Locke ran him down, and Mazdamundi levitated him just to get impaled on one of those nasty horns. Mazdamundi is so much stronger than Miao Ying and Oxyotl. It is crazy. If other Slan legendary characters were on this list, they would also be up here, but Mazdamundi is the most powerful of those. He is the most powerful thing I have ever read about. He is so scary.
Subscribe, yes.